Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Trommer, and as always, I'm joined by my other co-host, Sal Huerta.
Hello, everyone.
So, Sal, today is going to start a three-part series that we're doing with Matt Firestone from Firestone Consulting Group. And each series is going to be broken up into a different episode, focusing on what Matt calls a pillar of their consulting group. So today's going to be people. And then next week, we're going to be seeing processes. And the following week is going to be profits. It was great talking to Matt, especially on the people side of things, because he really helps to get in there and help business owners decide who they need to be hiring, what skill level they need to have, really an overall picture. And I love an analogy that Matt says is like, you can't just be hiring all shortstops. You need to be hiring people with different skill sets and personalities to complement each other, especially if you're sort of a field guy coming into owning this company. You might be great on the installation side of things, but your internal operations skill set might be lacking. So you got to find that person that might not have the skill set of the field or the understanding, but can really run a business internally. And he does a great job of looking at estimators and talking about his experience of hiring and training, hundreds of estimators over his years for these companies.
Yeah, we always talk about people, and we've, like you've mentioned before, we've had podcasts in the past talking about this, and this is a very important subject because, it's easy to think about, bringing somebody in, but you could also bring the wrong person in that could make a whole mess of the whole scenario. So, yeah, picking the right people for your company is a very important job.
Yeah, and I really like Matt's insights that we'll get into looking at people coming from outside the industry, people coming from the field, how each of them bring their own perspectives and how they go about estimating and what they do, and where there could be some red flags with those individuals as well. Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's start on the first part of this series. As always, great talking with you, Sal, and we'll catch up next week. Well, Matt, I appreciate you joining us today. If you could give me, I guess, the elevator pitch for what Firestone Consulting Group does, what would that be?
Sure, Chris. Well, first off, thanks for having me on your podcast today. I guess our elevator pitch for Firestone Consulting Group is our primary focus is helping leaders and owners of construction companies to grow and scale their business. And I know when we were talking before the show here, the primary focus is on your estimating side of things, and really that's the foundation of construction. In my mind, is having a good solid estimate. When we're working with companies, we work on individual things like estimating, project management, overall leadership structure, session planning, things like that. But we have three primary focuses that we look at: their people, their processes, and how that drives profit to the bottom line. And again, so much of that goes back to the estimating of the company. If they don't have a good estimate to start with, it's hard to be profitable. If they don't have the right people to do the job, it's going to be hard to be profitable. So they're all intertwined to each other. We think of them more as the legs of a stool, that they have to be in balance to have a successful company. And that's really what our goal is to help companies of varying sizes to get that in balance so that they have the right people, they have the processes for those people to follow, and as the owner of the company, make sure that they are maximizing the profitability of not only the projects, but then in turn, the company itself.
So when you're going in and working with these companies, I guess let's start with people. What is your first step? What are you looking at? Are you looking at what they currently have within their company, how people are being utilized? What are you guys sort of doing on that side of your stool, I guess it could be?
Yeah, sure. So when we look at the people side of it, just like kind of you're asking there, it's taking a inventory of what they have. We work with a lot of small businesses where it's tradespeople starting their own company, or now they're in the position of managing people. So do they have that estimating skill set themselves? Is that something that they need to hire? My background, I wasn't an electrician. I came from the office side of it. So I tell them, if I'm going to go start an electrical contracting company, I need to go hire electricians. Well, if they're the electricians, they may need to hire the estimator. They may need to hire the accountant. So we try to help them determine what are their resources, what are their needs. But then again, looking at it from the profitability standpoint, you can't just go out and hire an estimator if you don't have the volume there to do that. So looking to make sure that, do they have the right people? Maybe it's looking at finding a third-party company to help with some of the estimating needs and giving them some guidance on how to find those companies, interview those companies, because it still is their livelihood of operating their company profitably, relying on a third party's estimate. So kind of, again, looking at what are their needs, how do we come up with a game plan that works best for the resources that they have, what are their goals, and try to fine tune that into getting the right people on their team so that they can be successful.
Now, let me ask you something. We've talked with different company owners that have said, we only hire estimators that have been electricians, and others that have said, we bring people in that haven't been electricians to work as estimators. Do you have an opinion on which one maybe should be looked at? Is it somebody with that electrical background that has the hands-on knowledge that can bring that to the table? Or is it more the technical person that understands the software and maybe the project management side that doesn't really have that hands-on experience that they should be looking at? Or is it a combination of maybe both?
Right. So the proverbial, which came first, the chicken or the egg,
Yeah.
as it relates to construction. Yeah, and that's one of the questions I would say we get asked the most. What makes a good estimator? I do a lot of teaching in the estimating realm for some trade associations, for individual contractors. I think last check I had somewhere, I think we're pushing over 2,000 people that have participated in some of these estimating courses. And we have people that have come from the field. We've had people come from the university, other industries. I had a gentleman that was a mail carrier for the Postal Service that is now working for a contractor. So a lot of different backgrounds. I guess, the question you asked is, what is my opinion on it? My opinion is both can be very successful in it. One of my colleagues with Firestone Consulting, he came up through the trade as an apprentice, worked as a journeyman electrician, foreman, and then came into the office and ran the company and oversaw the estimating. My background is coming from working in the warehouse for an electrical contractor, going to the university, and then coming into estimating that way. I think both can bring value and strengths to that. Of course, those that come from the field have the knowledge of the materials, how they go together, how they're installed in the field, but maybe sometimes miss the bigger picture of, well, I can do it this way, but not every electrician is going to be able to do it as quickly or as efficiently as they can. They forget about getting the material to the job site, some of the other inefficiencies that are within that workday, where you get somebody that maybe doesn't have the wherewithal with the tools and the materials. They're looking at the big picture, but maybe missing some of the details on exactly how things go together. So as we build out our team, when I was working for a contractor, we tried to keep a balance of people that came from the field and people that had, whether it's the university education or came from a different trade, but just made sure that we had that balance and really maximize the team. I use a lot of sports analogies in my presentations, and you don't want to build a team that's all quarterbacks. You're not going to win any Super Bowls with a team of quarterbacks. That everybody has their role, they have their place, and if you keep some of those thoughts in mind as you're building out your team for your construction company, everybody has value, everybody has different abilities. It's how do you maximize those and the experience and knowledge that they bring.
Getting the right people in the right role.
It is.
Put it there. You can't have a baseball team with all shortstops, and you can't have you need somebody with some specialty skills. So it definitely makes sense in putting together a team that has different skills and different strengths and weaknesses to actually come together,
Yeah.
is what it's all about. I did want to ask you though, with these different backgrounds, these two different groups we were sort of just discussing, we were talking to somebody in the past, and their feeling was that the estimating software, the way that it's created now, the way it's moving forward with technology and sort of integrating all these different tools and aspects, that it might make it easier for somebody outside the industry to come into this kind of role, because a lot of the estimating software technology does certain aspects for you and provide you insight and information, where back in the day when it was just pen and paper and some specs on a table, it was a little bit more difficult, and you needed that sort of knowledge base. Do you agree with that?
Chris, to a certain level, I do. I'm a firm believer that software is a tool to make us better, more efficient at our job. We can teach people to use software, do data entry. As we moved into the digital takeoff age, the DEP, the live count, Bluebeam, those types of applications that are out there. I was showing my son when he was 10 years old at the time how to do takeoff. Click on this box here or click on this circle here. Had no clue what it was, but he could do takeoff, could provide value. We could get it taken off, but then it's still going to take that knowledge of, do we have the right parts and pieces that we get these canned databases and there's assemblies that are pre-built. But as the estimator, I still need to make sure that I've read the specifications. I'm looking at the details, that just because that symbol is a duplex receptacle on the drawing, there may be more to that assembly. And is the assembly in the software exactly what's called out for that project? So I think the software has definitely made it easier for people to learn estimating, but you still have to have that mentality of, I need to know how this is going to come together, and don't rely on, well, the computer said this is the number, then that must be the number. We still have to have some of those critical thinking skills and, get out on the job site, see how things are actually being built, and understand the difference from a plastic device plate to a stainless steel device plate.
Mhm.
Not a lot difference in labor, but the difference in cost would be something that if you were building a large project, that little piece there could be pretty costly to the company if you miss that in the specifications.
So it's not as easy as just bringing somebody in, putting them in front of a computer and say, hey, here's a few classes online and you should be able to click a few buttons on there and you're good to go. It does definitely sounds like it needs that hands-on experience, or at least background learning of the trade, to be able to utilize the software to its maximum potential.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of saying it, Chris, is it's to maximize what is there. You need to have a little bit more knowledge and experience that goes with that. Not to say that the intern on day one can't provide value to the estimating department, but maybe not to the same level as that experienced estimator. So if they're working together and you have someone that can count the symbols, get the takeoff completed, but then have a more senior person that maybe is looking over the shoulder of two or three of these interns or inexperienced estimators to make sure that the company isn't taking on any undue risk with the project.